And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the OHSAA Tailgate Show, coming to you live from the suite level here at Tom Benson Stadium in Canton, Ohio. And we're glad to bring this one to you, 53rd Annual High School State Football Championships here at Tom Benson in Canton. I'm Frank Salona, joined by my WHBC sports team here in Canton, 1480 WHBC Radio, as we bring high school football to the fans here in Stark County all season long. Tom McDaniels, our color commentary for our YouTube games. Denny Kincaid is our stat guy for our radio, and Bob Jeffries, who is our stat guy for our YouTube games as well. So glad you're with us, and we're going to, for the next 40 minutes or so, we're going to talk to you about what we've seen this weekend and what we can look forward to, and then we'll chat a little bit about what we've seen this past fall here in Stark County football. And guys, really what we've seen so far this year, there's been some really high games and really low games for some teams. Some of the things we expected to see, but not maybe as bad as we thought we would see. And we'll just run those by you here real quick. We'll talk about them here in a minute. But it all started Thursday night. We had Thursday night Cincinnati-Anderson and Avon, and that was two teams at 15-0. And Avon, the winner of that one, 20-13, their first state championship. They had been knocking on the door for a long time, and they finally broke through and won their first state championship. Yesterday on Friday, we had three games, and that first game was Hillsdale and Maria Stein Marion Local. Again, this was one of those games that kind of got out of hand. It was out of hand by halftime, and we kind of thought it was going to be something like that, but not as bad as it was. Marion Local, just a machine. They won their 64th straight game. That's 4 seasons of 16-0 football, and they won that one 74-0 over Hillsdale from Jeromesville. The second game matched up Columbus Bishop Watterson and Toledo Central Catholic, and Bishop Watterson finished the season undefeated with a 19-14 win, and the Eagles have done it many times, and that was a rematch from the year before. And then last night, the nightcap of the day, it was Olentangy Liberty against Cincinnati Archbishop Moeller, and Mighty Mo goes down as Olentangy Liberty with a win last night, 28-14. Then this morning we had the first game of the day, and that was Coldwater and Kirtland, two teams that have certainly been here many, many times. And Coldwater, the winner today by a score of 31-7, and a little bit of an eyebrow raiser, if you will, as we looked back at that ball game this morning. And Coach, I'll start with you. Mm-hmm. The games that you have seen this weekend so far, we've had 5 in the books. What one or two has really stood out to you?
Well, I thought the Avon game was a good game because it was a 1 touchdown difference, between winner and loser, and so that was a good competitive game. I had a feeling from the beginning that Avon was the better team, but I didn't know whether that was going to be 1 touchdown better or 2 or 3 or 3 points. But as I watched the game unfold, I felt like that was going to be the victorious team of the two. But it was a good competitive game. And you might have to remind me, the middle game yesterday.
Bishop Watterson and Toledo Central.
Yes. I maybe because I'm in northern Ohio, we were hearing a little bit more about Toledo Central than we were Bishop Watterson. But again, in that particular game, I thought the best team won. And I thought that they were playing like the best team from early well, actually not early on in the game, but eventually I felt like even before the outcome that, I was looking at the winner. Bring me up to date here. Where are we at now?
Well, this morning we had Coldwater and Kirtland.
This was an unexpected outcome because I thought it was going to be one of these competitive games decided, by whoever had the ball at the end of the fourth quarter, not to be. As I watched the game, and you have to play really good football, at this particular point. You can't have an average game and you can't have an off night because this is a possible outcome if that happens. So, both teams play great. We got a great contest, but that wasn't the case. I don't think it was. Kirtland's had better performances
Better days.
in their season. Yes.
All right, Denny, your any game stood out to you this weekend so far?
Well, I'm going to go back to Thursday night because, like Coach, I think, that was probably the best game and the most competitive. However, it was also the equalizer with the weather.
Good point.
Which, probably gave Anderson, a chance to actually be in it. And let's also note, that game came down to the very last play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and it looked like they were going to catch that ball, Cincinnati Anderson, in the end zone, and the kid just, off his fingertips. So that was probably the game that stood out. And, Marion local, that's just not fair.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they are probably at least very competitive if they play Division II or even Division III with Bishop Watterson.
Yeah.
I think they're in that the whole time.
And I'm going to jump in here real quick, and I know, Coach, you've talked about this as that competitive balance, and a team like that wins 74-0. Guys, do you make them move up? And I mean, is that something that the OHSAA needs to really look at? Do we look at possibly having teams like that are so dominant?
They
we
used
move them
to
up?
do that, didn't they?
Yeah, they had the option. I mean, a team as dominant as that, they would look at them.
But it hasn't been done that
No.
often, apparently.
You think about Marion Local. I mean, they only have 108 boys
I know that.
in their roster, but 70 of them play football.
Well, that was-
so
that
it's
was-
like
It was true of Coldwater today. We looked at the number of boys
Yes.
in their school, and half of them had to be on the sideline.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So it's just an incredible commitment that they make to football, and they dominate, but are you going to punish them for being so good?
And there's no boys soccer, I've heard, in the MAC.
The
right?
MAC, there is nobody
to play.
no one.
You don't have enough kids.
Yeah.
That's part of the formula that we may or may not have been aware of,
Yeah.
Exactly. Bob, anything stood out to you this weekend so far in the first 5 games?
By far, Thursday night. I mean, the weather was incredible. I mean, it was like a snow globe. We're playing in a blizzard. I mean, special teams were affected. The teams could barely pass the ball. I mean, beginning of the game, they weren't passing at all. The Avon quarterback, Nolan Good, I mean, he took over that game on the
Yeah.
ground. He had 19 carries, 190 yards, 1 touchdown, including a 71-yard touchdown run. So the weather of that for me, I mean, it was a 23-degree weather, 20-mile-per-hour wind. I mean, we had missed extra points. At the 1 point, Avon goes for 2, where an extra point would have put them up by 7. And we're like, why are they doing that? And here they, it was just the weather.
I've heard that snow globe referenced more than once, and I'm wondering if the people on TV who watched it on TV, because here in the stadium, it was exactly like that.
Yeah.
It was like watching something in a snow globe. You shook it up and you set it down, and I don't know whether that showed up on television
In
or
front
not,
of us
but
in the press box, snow was going up.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was like
it was swirling
it was
in
everywhere.
multiple directions.
In that game, still, there were 50 passes
Yes,
thrown in
yes.
that game.
when they had to.
So,
And that's sometimes you think about that, guys, and I've seen it at all levels, college, high school football, and in NFL. When the weather's like that, you think, oh, well, they're never going to throw the football. Look at the Buffalo game last week. How many times did they throw the football? It did not really come into play. I think that teams don't care if it's snowing. Now, wind, I think, is a different matter. If it's tough to throw in the wind. I've seen games where the ball, you started out over here and it ends up over here. Those are tough games. You got to really resort to the run. But last night or Thursday night with the snow really didn't bother them.
Wind to me is the biggest element of the weather that can dictate how you play the game. It isn't the cold, it isn't the snow, it isn't even rain, but wind that can change. I experienced that at the Rubber Bowl in 1995. We kicked an extra point, and it came back, went across the bar, and was blown back, or maybe it was Walsh, because that's who we
remember
played.
that.
And I mean, that's an enormous amount of wind. You couldn't punt or throw in the one direction, and you could in the other direction.
Yeah, there was only 1 punt in that game.
yeah, I think
So-
1 punt,
Yeah.
3 sacks, 1 punt in that game.
Which one? The one I'm talking
In the
about?
Avon,
In the Avon game.
Avon Anderson game.
I think the opponent only punted 3 times all year.
Oh, that's
really?
true. I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And 2 of them were in one game. That's how they played.
Yeah. Well, guys, we've got 2 more games. There's another game coming up here at 3 o'clock, and then tonight at 7:30. And the 3 o'clock game matches Liberty Center 15-0 against Ironton, who are 14-1. Ironton, their 12th appearance here in the finals over the course of that school's history. And then tonight at 7:30, you've got Indian Valley taking on Sandusky Perkins. And Indian Valley, first time here. Perkins, their second trip, looking for their second state championship, I should say. They had one years ago. Any thoughts on those 2 games? Let's start with the game here coming up at 3 o'clock.
Remind me who?
Liberty Center and Ironton.
Okay, Ironton, 12th appearance. How many wins?
I think they've won.
They've been state champs 2 times.
2 times,
Okay.
yeah.
79
so,
and 89.
So they're not in it for the 12th time seeking their first.
Correct.
Right.
Okay. And I should have remembered that, but I need
And these kids hadn't been in it before, I
Yeah.
believe.
Okay. I think having been in it is an advantage. Has the opponent been in it?
Well, Liberty Center, they were the runner-up in last year.
Okay, so
2020.
they've
been
got
here.
some
So-
state
Yep.
championship game
Yeah.
experience too. That's basically all I know about them. But you know, every game that I've attended, and it's been all of them except the one. You know, I scout them in the first quarter. I sort of do that when I work with you guys, you know, here in Stark County, because I don't necessarily, have all the nuts and bolts about who this team is or who the 2 teams involved are. But I'll basically do that the same way with this game as I have with the ones in the past.
Guys, Denny, we'll start with you.
Well, I mean, Liberty Center coming back from last year, 15-0. Ironton, yes, they've been here. This is their 12th appearance, but these kids weren't even alive when the first 2 came. So, to me, I think the experience really lies with Liberty Center.
Good point.
And 15-0, you're there for a reason.
You've got a little chip on your shoulder.
Sure.
You're trying to get back to that game and win it.
Yeah, Liberty Center, I mean, they only gave up 36 points in the regular season.
Yeah.
So they got an incredible defense. Their closest game was against Oak Harbor in the regional semifinals. They won 24-21. Now, interesting thing about Liberty Center, they run the ball. So if the weather was like really bad, I would say, oh boy, that's really going to help them. But we have a perfect day today for football. So they got Waylon Renz. He had 1,700 yards, 29 touchdowns. Thomas Moeller, 903 yards and 8 touchdowns. And Garrison Krause, 843 yards and 15 touchdowns. So they are run. So, but they got a great defense too. They only allow 175 yards per game. And their best defensive back, Cam Cayley, had 8 interceptions. So they seem like a run-first, good defense, like old-fashioned, just pounded-out football.
Yeah. And then, go ahead, Coach, you have something?
The game that just ended, I was excited because I saw quarterbacks under center.
Yeah,
You know,
which is
from
rare.
both
talk about
Very
that a
rare.
lot.
which
Yeah.
is rare in this day and age. The other thing that I'll mention is that, these teams with these, one loss or they've had perfect seasons up to this particular point. And I think it played out, with Kirtland today. When they're dominant, how prepared are they to come from behind?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
because I looked at their scores and they won most of them handily. And how prepared are they to come from behind by having to throw the ball because they were a running team
Right.
too, clearly. And I wonder if we're going to see that happen in this next game.
Yeah, and question for coaches, we used to always say, if you want to win a state title, you do have to throw the football. But when you look at Liberty, and there was a team down in Columbus that won, that basically ran the ball every single time.
Right.
But how important is it to be able to at least throw when you have to?
Well, and that's the predicament that even though you had a perfect season up to this particular point, you can find yourself in that predicament, and now you're trying to win left-handed, which is why, once I transitioned from being an assistant to a head coach, I finally figured out, we've got to have some proficiency and be able to win either way. And so we aspired to be that team rather than just a run-oriented and a, you know.
Well, we've got one more then after that tonight, 7:30. That's the finale game tonight, and that is Jeanette and Hutton, Indian Valley South,
Right.
or Indian Valley, I should say. They merged the North and South now into Indian Valley. That was a few years ago. I'm kind of dating myself there. And they take on Sandusky Perkins, who a team that is looking for their second state championship. And Indian Valley, first time appearance here. You talked about the run, Bob. This is a team that loves to run the football. And Nisley, their running back, he is an incredible back. He is a football, Mr. Ohio football finalist this year. Did not win it, but he's a junior. And he's got a chance next year to come back and even have a bigger year. This is a team that plays in the IVC, Inter Valley Conference, not too far from us here in Stark County. Some Stark County teams in it. But this is a team that certainly loves to run the football and could be one of those teams that, if they do find themselves behind, might be tough to come back.
Yeah, and they're facing a Perkin Pirates team. I mean, they have only one state championship, and that was in 1999. But I mean, you beat Glenville to get here, so I mean, you got to have something to hang your hat on there. So they beat the defending state champs. So
Yeah, that's a significant win.
yeah. So
Yeah,
they've
good.
gone up against a very good team there, and so yeah, it's going to be a good game.
Yeah. As I'm preparing for this game tonight, I'm working the sidelines for it. That was what I did was I went down their schedule and I put a little check mark by signature wins, and that one certainly is a big win for them to really beat a Glenville team that, you know, year in and year out, they're usually here playing.
You mentioned off air the competitive balance, because Glenville, doesn't play like a Division 6. It's at 6. No, Division 4.
Division 4. Yeah.
They don't play like a Division 4
Well,
team.
they got here more often as a lower division team than they did as a Division 1 team, because when
Yeah.
I was playing them, they were Division 1.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Denny, on the game?
Well, we just mentioned it. The signature win for Perkins is Glenville. That's pretty darn impressive. But, from my standpoint, Indian Valley coming out of the IVC, which is size-wise is a very good league. And so I'm kind of just rooting for Indian Valley because of the IVC.
And you've got Ridgewood, who's a very good football team. You've got Garraway, who's a very good football team. Sandy Valley's down a little bit this year, but they gave them a pretty good game. They scored 14 points on them, which is pretty impressive. A lot of teams didn't score that many points on them. So there are really good teams in that IVC South, especially. And I think that with that running game that they have, and Coach, I know you're old school as well as me. When you have that great running game and good defense, that wins a lot of championships.
There's no question, and I'm excited to see him play because I've heard so much about the running back, and I'm excited to see, at this particular point in time, obviously, the opposing team is gearing up to stop, this guy, and make their running game ineffective. And I'm anxious to see whether he can succeed, at a significant level against a team that's devoted, to limiting his ability to be amazing.
One thing, kind of a little human interest story, if you will, the head coach at Perkins High School is Jalen Santoro. Jalen Santoro was the starting quarterback in 2012 when his Bellevue team played St. Vincent St. Mary's here in the state championship. They lost that game. So this, for Coach Santoro, has a little bit of maybe a little bit of a drive, if you will, to come back and not only win it, but win it as a coach. Now, you lost it as a starting quarterback for a team that made it to the state championship. Now he gets a chance to come back as a coach.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I think so too. So, guys, we'll take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about some of the things we've seen here in Stark County over the last season. We've had some great football here, great teams, great coaches, and things like that. So I want to pick your brains a little bit about what we've seen here in Stark County. We'll take a time out and come back right after this. And welcome back here to the OHSAA Tailgate Show, coming to you live from the 6th floor here at Tom Benson Stadium. We are in the suite level, overlooking the field down there, and we are excited to be bringing you the 53rd state championship games here in Stark County at Tom Benson Stadium, next door to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame coach, speaking of Hall of Famers, Tom McDaniel's with us, Denny Kincaid, he loves when I say that, and Bob Jeffries are all here with us as we are with you here to bring you through this segment of the show. And guys, we've had the opportunity and the privilege to really see a lot of great football here in Stark County, and with WHBC Sports, Denny with the radio crew, Bob and Tom and I with the YouTube crew. We have done a whirlwind tour, if you will, of Stark County schools, and we're so blessed here to have what we have as far as teams, coaches, and the fans, I think, in Stark County. I know everyone thinks they've got the best fans and the best teams and coaches, but we certainly do here in Stark County as well. And I want to talk about the season that we just completed and some of the teams that we've seen and performances that we've had and things like that. And I think let's start it off. I think it's important to start off, and we'll do it with the Massillon Tigers. The Massillon Tigers to the west of us here were a team that went out west. They went to Oregon to play NFL Europe, a team that was put together of a lot of players that were living overseas and had an opportunity to get together, and they put that team together, and they were able to come over here to the United States, and Massillon went out and in Oregon and played that ball game, and it was fun. It was good for our radio crew was there, and Denny, you had an opportunity to.
I was not.
No, you were not there. You were not there, but our radio crew was there.
Yes.
Denny didn't make the trip, but as far as that game, guys, and kind of how we kicked off the season with Massillon, how important is that really for not only the Tigers but Stark County in general?
Well, I do agree that it's an honor to be invited, because it's not like, hey, I'm going to go out there. They invited you.
Yeah.
So kudos to Massillon. And, although in theory there were no computer points, it's almost kind of like a scrimmage because they didn't even count it. But as you go down the records, it would be included. But I think it was a great experience for those kids. And when they came back, they had a meat grinder of a schedule. Mm-hmm. So to come out the way they did, they were good. Yeah. They were very good. Yeah.
Bob, any thoughts on
I would
on that
say,
game?
I'm an educator. I taught for 34 years. I taught social studies, and I can't tell you how many times I would talk to kids who have never left, Stark County. I mean, never had a chance to travel at all. And for a lot of those kids going out there to Oregon, seeing the country, seeing a part of the world that they've never seen before, I think that's a phenomenal experience aside from football.
Yeah, it affords us the opportunity to really, like you said, Bob, kids that are never going to really leave Stark County or go too far out of the state of Ohio to really experience that. And Coach, putting your coaching hat back on, if that was something – maybe as the McKinley Bulldog coach or Warren Harding coach, and that was presented to you, would that have been something you would have taken advantage of?
Probably not. I'm just being honest with you. Until I hear you guys talk about the travel experience that those kids had that some of them may never have, I think that was the major benefit. But I probably wouldn't have been as self-aware of that piece of it as I would have been about playing them. I think the game was won before they got on the plane. You're not going to throw a team together.
Right.
I don't care where they're from, and expect them to be competitive against a Massillon team. And we didn't know whether Massillon was going to win 10 or go 5-5. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Because Massillon was going to be better coached and more well prepared. I think the game was won before they ever got on the plane.
It was more for the experience, I think, than anything. But when you talk about the Massillon Tigers, especially at the end of the year, you always have to talk about the McKinley Bulldogs as well, and that's another team, big rivalries. We call it the biggest rivalry in high school football. We have it right here in Stark County. They play it right here on this field. They play it in Massillon, 6 miles away from us here. It's something, Coach, that you've been a big part of for a long time in your career. And this year, Coach Antonio Hall with the McKinley Bulldogs had a much better year. Didn't start off 0 what was it last year? 0-4, I think it was, to start the season.
Yep.
More prepared this year. The Bulldogs played a lot better, and they played a lot better in that Massillon-McKinley rivalry game. They did not win. Massillon did win that one, but it was, you can almost tell it's starting to get closer and closer together.
Well, I felt like both teams played extremely well defensively because they were determined to run the ball, and neither team generated much offense on the ground. And I was surprised at actually how well McKinley defended their running game, and McKinley wasn't as fortunate enough to have a good game through the air in that particular game, but both teams were extremely successful in defending the run. As a result, we got a low-scoring game for the most part.
Yeah. Denny, you got to be a part of that game this year. Your thoughts, Massillon-McKinley matchup?
Yeah, a coach got it. The running game had to be there for both teams, and it was not. I mean, Gamble out of Massillon averages almost 10 yards a carry.
Yep.
And, I think he had less than 50 yards total.
I believe you're right, as I recall.
And Massillon, give them kudos. They shut down Nino Hill, and the other running back, his name escapes me at the point. But so that's a great game.
Well, aside from the two teams that we just talked about, Stark County again, great teams, great coaches. You talk about the Federal League with McKinley. You've got Jackson, who tied with them this year as league champs. Let's talk about Jackson for a minute there. A team that really starts to embody and resemble their coach and the things that he has done. And, boy, when you have a guy like
Jay Rohr.
Totally lost my when you have a guy like Jay Rohr, who was an incredible player back in the day and just hard-nosed, he's starting to make sure that is now a team thing, a team philosophy, and that's how his teams are starting to kind of get that character, if you will. And they had a great season. I know you guys were involved in a couple of those games. Talk a little bit about there.
Yeah, it's interesting how, teams seem to take on the coach's personality. I was at Perry for years, and, those teams were Keith Wakefield's personality. Just tough and grind it out, no-nonsense type teams. And I think that's what's happening in Jackson. They're starting to take over his personality. And I only saw him one time this year, and that was against Lake. And that started out as a great game, but unfortunately, that's a game where Lake lost their two quarterbacks. So they were basically running with a third stringer, and that pretty much gave Jackson the advantage. But that was a very well-skilled Jackson team. They could throw the ball. They could run the ball. They had a lot of speed. So that was a very good team. But then they had that toughness, too. Yeah. They're a linebacking crew. I mean, they were seek and destroy on defense. So that was a very good team and very well worthy of the Co-Federal League champs. Yeah,
and let's remember, Jay Rohr, the coach, was voted All-County Coach of the Year by his peers.
Correct.
So, and I don't think
that was well deserved.
Oh, absolutely well deserved. I don't know if everyone thought that they would be as good as they were, come Federal League time. We did the Jackson McKinley game here, and Jackson just manhandled McKinley, and so kudos to Coach Rohr. That program is definitely headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think so too. Go ahead, Coach.
I share a thought here.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Jay Rohr, and he and I meet occasionally just to talk football. And he's already reached out to me and is anxious to do that again. So we'll meet somewhere.
Can we all be there with
you? Yeah, what's going on? Can you invite us?
These are deep, dark secrets here.
We'll be in the table next to you.
Yeah. We ought to. What's that called when they embed the camera with the teams in practice?
Spygate.
One of the things that I think we'll end up talking about, and unless you experience it, you don't even consider it. How do you beat a good team twice?
Yeah.
And I've had tons of experience and been on the losing end. When in McKinley it was Iggy,
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we'd lose to them in regular season, then we'd see them in the playoffs, and then we'd lose to them. Well, we flipped the switch, you know, when I was in Warren. And we were able to, you know, we beat Masson twice in 1 year. And we beat Iggy twice in 1 year. So, but there's a consideration and a mental approach to that that I think I, you know, have not maybe the definitive answer to, but I'm going to share with Jay what I think about that predicament, that problem, because so often, you know, the loser of the first game has, you know, the momentum psychologically going into the second game. Sure. But in Warren, lost to the same team, you know, and the head coach at Warren was a former coach of mine, so, you know, we had conversations about that too. But I look forward to that with Jay Rohr.
Yeah.
Some other teams that we had a chance to really look at this year in Stark County, Northwest as a team that is coached by John DeMarco.
Yep.
Smaller school, smaller division school, but no letdown when it comes to toughness, no letdown when it comes to talent or anything like that. Coaching is phenomenal. Love what John DeMarco has done with that program. Yep. We got a chance as our YouTube team had a chance to do a ball game there, and a young man by the name of Parker Kraft had an incredible ball game that night. He had broken his ankle in week 1 and missed 7 weeks, maybe?
Just about, yeah.
7 or 8 weeks. 7 or 8 weeks. Came back, played a little bit week 8, a little bit more week 9, and then I think it was the week 10 game we did. Parker Kraft went off. I mean, he went off 400-plus yards of rushing on offense. He was just a one-man wrecking crew, and that probably, guys, ranks right up there with probably one of the best performances I've seen in Stark County in the 30-plus years that I've been doing this.
Right.
And so, you know, hats off to you know, Parker and Northwest. Chase Badger, the quarterback for the Indians, did a great job this year. I thought, you know, this was a kid that was a wide receiver. Yeah. And he had to be, you know, moved into that quarterback position, really. I mean, you think about it, he wasn't really planning on being the quarterback.
And he looked like a quarterback.
And he looked like a quarterback. So again, hats off to Coach DeMarco. I don't know if you guys have anything you want to say about that.
Go ahead, I'll defer,
we
I
saw
got something.
Northwest 2 games in a row. We saw the Canton South Northwest, and then we saw Northwest in their first playoff game. And Parker Kraft in that first game, he really did not do much. I mean, that was Chase Badger's game, throwing, running the ball. He was our player of the game. He was phenomenal.
Right.
So, like, Parker Kraft kind of came out of nowhere with that performance. I mean, 426 yards. Yeah. He had almost 400 by the beginning of the third quarter.
It's 3-something at halftime.
Well, clearly he was trying to make up for missed games, all in one.
And he did. Such a great story. I mean, you miss your whole season, and then you come back like that, and like it's just phenomenal. You got to feel great for the kid.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to piggyback right onto that, because when we heard the number at halftime, you know, there's like, that can't be right.
Well, the word spread. I mean, it was going around Stark County. We were texting each other and
not
saying,
only
this
the
kid's
yards,
got 300
but
yards at halftime.
5 or 6. I can't remember.
That's insane. But
If it was in print, we'd have thought it was a typo.
oh yeah,
Denny sometimes questions my stats. So
like,
Everybody was
wait a minute.
questioning Bob that night.
I
He
think he had
really had that many yards?
326, I think, at half, and everyone's like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And we're scrambling trying to figure out what the school record is, the county record,
Yeah.
and all that stuff,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, as a stat guy, I'm sure Bob did the same thing of, is that right?
Oh, I know. I
That
was
can't
double
be
checking,
right.
triple checking.
The thing about Northwest, and I'm in disagreement with Kenny Rhoda here, and we didn't have a home game at Fawcett to experience their press box food.
Oh, yeah.
But
Oh,
I
yeah.
think Northwest,
they take good care of you.
yeah, you know,
They do feed you.
and again, I look forward to maybe having a game, you know, in Fawcett next year where I can experience, you know, Antonio's mom.
Listen to this guy. He just called this place Fawcett.
Yeah. But I will say, Coach Hall's mom, that food was very good.
I look forward to it.
Yes.
I look forward to it.
Everyone has to experience that once.
All right. Guys, before we get out of here, we've got about 10 minutes or so, a little bit less. I do want to talk about the Lake Blue Streaks and Charlie Christopher, the young man that's the running back, linebacker for the Lake Blue Streaks. He's another guy that we had an opportunity, and I say opportunity because it's a great opportunity for us to witness some of this great play and coaching that we've seen all year. But Charlie Christopher was our Stark County Player of the Year, and the young man got it done on the ground, on defense, special teams. He ran kickoffs back. This was a kid that, I don't know, guys, for me, I think it was a runaway. I didn't see the voting numbers, but for me, I think it would have been a runaway for him to win Stark County Player of the Year. He did, and I just wanted to mention that. I know you guys probably have something you want to say about that as well. Bob?
Oh, yeah. I mean, first time we saw Charlie was against Jackson. And I remember a play. He was blitzing the quarterback. He's in the quarterback's face, forces a throw. Quarterback completes it, a little slant into the wide receiver, one of their quick guys. Who tackles him but Charlie Christopher? He caught him from behind. I'm like, who does that? Like, is in the quarterback's face, keeps the motor running, and he goes and he makes a tackle on defense. I mean, just incredible. And then I got to see him play against Hoban, a very, very good Hoban team, which had a Ohio State linebacker, Eli Lee. I thought Charlie was the better defender. I mean, Eli Lee had 10 solo tackles. I mean, he was very good. But Charlie, he had 17 tackles, 13 solos. He forced a fumble, and he had 18 carries, 99 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, right there in my mind, I'm like, that's the best player I've seen this year. Both sides of the field. Incredible.
Remind you of anybody that you coached?
Not necessarily, and again, it would take more time than we have for me to recall that and answer that question appropriately. But what I remember in the game, I thought Dan DeGeorge, I saw him against McKinley in another opponent. I think I was at the Jackson game too. But I thought Dan DeGeorge had a great game plan that he had to be patient with in order to beat McKinley if that was to happen. But it was Dan, or it was Christopher as a ball carrier.
Oh, yeah.
Gaining 2 on this down, and then leading for the other ball carrier, and they'd get a 3-yard gain. And they were trying to create 3rd and shorts and want to avoid 3rd and longs because they weren't equipped to handle that situation. And they were so patient with it, but it was him as a lead blocker, him as a ball carrier, and him as a linebacker that, that performance in itself, won him the award, in my opinion.
I agree.
They combined for over 200 yards that game.
Yes, they did.
Against a McKinley team who knew they were going to run because Lake didn't have a quarterback.
And that
was all between the tackles.
No, and I can't do this without mentioning that Lake was the victim of a couple of calls that badly, against them and not in their favor, and fumbles that weren't called fumbles and so on. But in a game like that, when you're trying to climb that mountain that Lake was trying to climb, you needed that. Yep.
I agree. Guys, before we get out of here, we've got about 5 minutes or so. I want to kind of get Coach involved a little bit here. Coach Tom McDaniels spent many years at Canton McKinley. Warren Harding, 1981, you were the assistant coach when the Bulldogs won the state championship.
Correct.
1985 was runner-up in Columbus.
2 Moeller.
2 Moeller. And 1997, you beat Massillon, and that was that was at Massillon. And you won the state championship that year
Against Moeller.
and you had to throw that
You
in there.
hear that theme?
And then 2002, McKinley, here at what was then Fawcett Stadium, lost, but was runner-up in that game. So you
To Elder.
To Elder.
21-19, but during that season, we gave Moeller the worst defeat they've ever had.
Yeah.
So, but that Moeller name pops up a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And since we are here, Coach, I want to ask you and just get your thoughts here in the next couple of minutes. Coaching in this game. Mm-hmm. I know Denny had asked you earlier about, what do you say to a team that's, in this game and getting blown out like that happened here a couple times today or this weekend. But as a coach that, as an assistant, you played in it and won it. Mm-hmm. And then your first go-around as a head coach, you lost. Mm-hmm. You came back some teams never get here.
Yep.
And you had four opportunities to do that.
Yep.
And tell us about that experience. You got 3 minutes.
Yeah, and it was in 4 different places. We played at Ohio State, we
Yep.
played at the Rubber Bowl, we played at Masson, and we played here. And
all 4 places?
4 different venues, yes. The experiences were awesome, regardless of the outcome. You know, because just making it to this point in your life as a high school coach, that's significant in and of itself. I remember most specifically the most recent one, and that was in 2002. We played Elder. We lost 21-19, and we had late significant snowfall, and the start of the game was delayed because they had to clean the field. And I'm not talking about 2 or 3 minutes. And I happened to be a little obsessive compulsive about our pregame timetable. Well, my pregame timetable went out the window, a few minutes before kickoff time when they told us they were going to delay the start of the game so they could clean the field and make it more playable for us. I did not manage that delay to start the game as well as I should have. And I blame myself for being 2 points, below what we needed. And I regret that. I wish I could do that over again. And I've admitted that to the people in Warren, and I willingly admit it to you now. But we have to manage things well that we cannot change. And that's one of my mantras. That's one of my core concepts. And I didn't do that, in the biggest night of our life in 2002.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, guys, we are getting close here to wrapping this up. We've got about a minute to go here. We're going to wrap it up. Closing thoughts real quick, 10 seconds or so, Bob.
Looking forward to seeing you on the sidelines for the last game. I might come down and join you, but yeah.
Come on down.
It's been a great weekend of football. I always love coming here. It's a great venue, and I'm really happy with this, how it turned out.
Denny?
Yeah, same here. I'm telling you, you can't beat this venue, period.
It's the best.
This is the greatest.
Coach?
well, I'm not coming down on the sideline to see you.
Come on.
Come on down.
No. I'm full-blown sissy right now.
All right, so we'll be back at 6:15 for the next tailgate show, and we're going to send it back upstairs now to the Ohio Radio Network and Spectrum, and they're going to bring you that Division 5 game between Liberty Center, 15-0, and Ironton, 14-1. Thank you for joining us, and have a great afternoon.